Greetings, gamers. I hope you're doing well. Today we're going to talk about RPGs, or role playing games. Specifically, my 10 favorite RPGs. I didn't really grow up playing RPGs. I started gaming around 4 years old with Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis, and most of my formative years were spent playing platformers like Sonic and Spyro. Even until my early and late teens, I didn't really play a whole lot of RPGs, still mostly sticking with action platformers like Ratchet and Clank and Sly Cooper, and a lot of first person shooters like Call of Duty and Halo. One of the first RPGs I do remember playing was Knights of the Old Republic, but I was a dumb kid when that came out, so I didn't really get the mechanics all that well, and I don't think I ever beat Malik at the end. I do remember watching my dad play old RPGs like Silver and King's Quest on the family computer, but as I got older, I expanded my horizons with games like Fallout, the Elder Scrolls series, and Dragon Age. And now RPGs are among my favorite genre of games, and games I constantly go back to. Now, I didn't really get into JRPGs until much more recently, so as it stands, I only have 2 on this list. But the list of games I want to play this year heavily comprised of those. The only ground rule I set for myself for this list is 1 game per series/franchise. But before that, I'd like to give a thank you to everyone that's shown support here and on Twitch since I started this journey. If you haven't already, consider dropping a like or subscribing to my channel to keep up to date as I continue to get new content out there. Right now, I'm trying to do 1 to 2 videos a week, juggling this with my full-time job and streaming. Any support is greatly appreciated. Starting off at 10th place, we have Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I mentioned at the beginning that I didn't finish this game as a kid, but as an adult, I found the time to go back and complete it, and oh boy, what a journey this game is. It takes such a low spot because each game above it is that much better to me. Knights of the Old Republic sees you as an amnesiac aboard an Old Republic cruiser, and you have to figure out what happened to you and why you're there. This game is my first foray into classic BioWare mechanics that they used to excel at. The good versus evil choice system that actually has an effect on how people treat you, and your appearance, and romance choices that matter. Obviously, you have to choose Bastila, and every other opinion is wrong, but they do still give you options. The gameplay itself is nothing to write home about, being fairly standard turn-based action, but it was good for what it was. The story is where this one really shines. Piecing together your life, finding out you're in the Force, recruiting various companions on your journey to find the star maps and eventually the Star Forge, then finally learning that the Sith you thought you were hunting all along, Darth Revan, is actually you. The choice then, to embrace the dark side and drag your companions with you, or go down the path of light, redeeming Malik's old master. It may not be BioWare's best game, most people would probably give that to Mass Effect 2, but it's certainly my favorite. Coming in at 9, we have South Park: The Stick of Truth. Truthfully, the main thing that sets this one apart from the Fractured Butthole for me is the mock fantasy setting. Stick of Truth sees you as the new kid who just moved to South Park, Colorado. All the kids at South Park are LARPing a medieval fantasy role-playing game where the objective is to obtain the legendary titular Stick of Truth. The game follows the TV series arc that coincided with the release of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One consoles, with the console war being the backdrop of the kids' conflict. You start the game, create your character, and choose your name. But regardless of what you pick, Hartman just calls you douchebag, which sets the tone for this game. South Park is lovingly recreated in this game, allowing you to explore essentially every corner of the town while doing side quests, collecting chimp Pokemon, and befriending your classmates and other various residents. Stick of Truth keeps with the raunchy humor of the show, so it's not for the faint of heart. One major theme you'll see in each of these entries I've chosen is exploration. Stick of Truth does this fantastically. It allows you to walk through basically every corner of South Park and explore it. It's fantastic. It's a shame the 3rd entry opted for a roguelike deck builder instead of another open RPG like this one in the Fractured Butthole. Hopefully a 4th game will come out and continue its story because it certainly deserves it. Coming in 8th place is Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I mentioned at the start I didn't really play JRPGs until recently, but the exception there is Pokemon. Pokemon was a staple of my childhood. I have vivid memories of my mom taking me out of school to get Leaf Green, and another memory of losing a lot of progress in that game because I set my Game Boy down too hard, and the batteries popped out the back. But I've been there for every Pokemon release since I was cognizant of what Pokemon really was. There's nothing to me more exciting in a Pokemon game than finding a new Pokemon for the first time, other than maybe getting a shiny. Despite Heart Gold and Soul Silver being remakes, to me they are the definitive Pokemon experience. Recreating the story of the 2nd generation of Pokemon with the beautiful 4th generation's graphics and the national dex updated to Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, these games gave what I still consider to be the most complete Pokemon experience. As with the original Gold and Silver, once you become champion of the Johto region, the world opens up and gives you access to the Kanto region, a feature that hasn't explored since. This allows you to fully explore 2 regions in the game, with a plethora of new challenges to tackle and Pokemon to find, all the way up to fighting Red at the top of Mount Silver. Coming in number 7th, we have Red Dead Redemption 2. there's a couple of games on this list that didn't resonate with me at first, and Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of them. I bought this game at launch and got maybe an hour in before shelving it for 7 years. And that's right, 7 years. I picked it back up over this most recent holiday and finally understood the hype. Arthur Morgan's story is undoubtedly one of the best in video game history, and while a lot of games I have on this list have fantastic storytelling, very few hit nearly as hard as this one does. The gameplay does have its quirks, however. But as far as overall immersion goes, very few games reach the same level as this one. From hunting and fishing to catching bounties and taming horses, this game has everything you'd want from a Wild West sandbox. The environment as well is breathtaking. From the rolling hills of the Midwest to the mountains and snow in the north and the swamps of the fake Louisiana down in the south, this game has it all. Unfortunately, it does lose some points for me because half the achievement list is locked behind multiplayer achievements, and I don't care for multiplayer achievements whatsoever. I would like to go back and complete it one day, but I'm not sure when that'll be. 6th place goes to Oblivion / the Oblivion Remaster. It was hard to decide which one of these two to put, so I decided to do both. They're virtually the same game after all, with just a new coat of paint. The harder decision was choosing between Oblivion and Skyrim as my one Elder Scrolls entry. Both games have overwhelming amounts of nostalgia for me, and have taken hours of my time just exploring and walking around aimlessly, but it ultimately came down to the setting. Cyrodiil wins out above Skyrim because Cyrodiil offers a trek through a high fantasy environment with ancient elven ruins and the classic medieval taverns and inns. Oblivion is also among the first Western-style RPGs that I've ever played. I remember seeing a friend play it in freshman year of high school, and being mesmerized by everything the game had to offer. From the moment you step out of the Imperial sewers, you're granted total freedom, and while that's true of most of the games on this list, it was my first time experiencing such openness in a game. It spits you out with a main questline, but aside from that, you can do pretty much whatever you want. Funny enough, when I played this game when I was young, I probably went a good 20 or so hours without even leveling up because I just didn't sleep and I didn't understand that's how the mechanic worked. You can imagine my shock when I did finally level up and moved forward several levels. A lot of the monster spawns changed, giving me minotaurs and unicorns and other crazy shit, creating essentially a whole new game. This was also the first game I got 100% achievement completion in, so extra points for steering me on the path of hunting achievements. 5th place goes to Cyberpunk 2077. I played Cyberpunk 2077 at launch, and while I wasn't plagued with the technical issues like many other people were, I wasn't overly impressed with the game either. I played on the Series X, and from what I remember, its performance was the least terrible, but I didn't love the game. I hated the map, it made the side content overwhelming and hard to get into, and it felt like a chore to play. Despite this, I did play it through to one ending, and beelining the story was enjoyable enough. Fast forward a couple of years, and the Phantom Liberty DLC gets announced, along with a full revamp of the game. I decided to give it a second try in preparation for the DLC, and this time I fell in love. Riding the high of the 2.0 release, and the fantastic Cyberpunk Edgerunners anime, Night City takes me by the balls in the best way possible, and I spent a little under a week completing everything the game has to offer, and reaching 100% of the achievements. Exploring the world, meeting all the wonderful characters, and just getting fully immersed in the dystopia that honestly doesn't look too much worse than the world we live in now. Naturally, I'm there a year later to do the same for Phantom Liberty. Everything about where this game ended up is fantastic. The world, the characters, the gameplay, and most of what was there from the start, just buried under a pile of nonsense, bad UI, and poor optimization. Hopefully the next Cyberpunk outing has a much smoother launch. Keeping it rolling with CD Projekt Red, 4th place goes to The Witcher 3. A game that put them on the map for a lot of people, myself included. Funny enough, I wasn't super fond of this game at its release either, but for different reasons. I found the opening few hours to be boring and couldn't really get into it. It probably wasn't until a couple years later that I actually sat down and gave it the time it deserves. I was a different gamer in early 2015 than I was upon retrying it, and even different now. The game offers some things very similar to why other games are on this list, but it edges them all out because the story is that good. The conclusion, more or less, to Geralt's saga has him searching for his adoptive daughter and stopping the Wild Hunt, a group of ancient elves who want her powers. The game offers a couple of endings based on the choices you make in game, and gives you vast freedom to explore the large world, and what a world this game has. From war-torn battlefields to sprawling medieval cities, ruins, and a whole Norse-themed island, there's plenty to explore. This may be the game that got me more into walking from point A to point B and just fully observing the environment, taking in all the puddles, stopping to observe the rain, the way the wind blows the grass, and just fully immersing myself in the world. The only game that surpassed this in exploration and enjoyment for me now is Crimson Desert. We can't skip over the characters, each one having a fully fleshed story that you just want to learn more about. While obviously this is the third game in this series and follows a handful of books, it's a perfectly fine entry point into Geralt's saga. I can't wait for the next one and can only assume it'll land on a future top RPG list. Starting off the top 3, we have Baldur's Gate 3. I've never played any of the other Baldur's Gate games, or any of Larian's other games for that matter, but they're all in my ever-expanding backlog. Baldur's Gate 3 is probably the only game on this list I've ever played through its entirety once, but for fair reasons. When the game first came out, PC I had was pretty weak. I managed to make it all the way to Act 3 and arrived at Baldur's Gate. The sheer amount of NPCs that inhabited the city turned my laptop into a fighter jet, and it wasn't having any of it. Fast forward to the release on the Xbox, I was finally able to get through to the end of the game and experience the story in its entirety. But the story, while great, isn't what kept me playing this game. It was Shadowheart. No, but seriously, the companions in this game are in a league of their own, each with their own unique story and background, motivations and flaws, even some returning favorites like Jaheira and Minsc and Boo from previous games. Granted, I did use the same party most of the time. The world as well is gorgeous. The level of detail in the environments is astounding, and one thing that set this game apart from most of the other RPGs I've played is a level of, can I do that? Probably. Being able to use Goblin's body to bowl his companions over, or load up an encounter with explosives and end it before it even starts, grants so many unorthodox ways to play the game. It also got me dangerously into D&D lore there for a bit. Granted, I've never actually ran a real campaign. Taking second place is Persona 5 Royal, the sole not Pokemon JRPG on this list. The Japanese school kid sticking it to the man power fantasy you didn't know you had. The reason I haven't played any other Persona game to completion. Seriously, this game is that good that I haven't touched any of the others in the series because I was worried they won't hold a candle what Persona 5 offers. I am going to be starting Persona 3 Reload soon though, so we'll see how that stacks up. But Persona 5 is a game I think about very, very often. On a cool spring morning when it's raining, Persona 5. When I feel like taking down corrupt adults because they suck, Persona 5. I added Royal to the list instead of regular Persona 5, because honestly, the extra content this version adds is just that good. The 2 new confidants in Kasumi and Maruki, the quality of life updates, not having to complete the entire compendium for the achievement list. But without a doubt, my favorite thing about this game, as with many others on this list, is just the feeling of exploring the world. Being able to roam around Tokyo and visit the tech shops in Akihabara, going to the batting cage, or to catching a movie to level up your skill points, the atmosphere and environment make me nostalgic for a place that I've never been but hope to visit someday. And of course, number 1 is Elden Ring. From Software's magnum opus, the open-world Souls game that takes aspects from each of their previous games and melds it into one giant experience that's fantastic for Souls veterans and newcomers alike. A lot of other games on this list could potentially switch places or be replaced entirely, but Elden Ring most likely won't be going anywhere for any time soon. When this game came out, I took off a whole week of work and sunk dozens upon dozens of hours into it, exploring every nook and cranny, trying every build and weapon and spell you can imagine, unlocking each possible ending and achievement, raging in defeat and celebrating a victory. Is this game perfect? Probably not. Some of the bosses, looking at you, Elden Beast, can get entirely fucked and I wouldn't be upset never seeing again. But this game keeps with my theme of having an endlessly explorable world, opting to walk everywhere rather than fast travel or use the mount. Elden Ring offers so many holy shit moments, so many walking out of the vault for the first time moments, reaching Stormveil Castle, surpassing Stormveil Castle, reaching Liurnia for the first time, finding a full, explorable city underground, discovering a whole world in the past covered in dragons and tornadoes, epic festival fighting Radahn with all the companions that you can summon, beating Malenia for the first time, and of course, taking your place on the throne as Elden Lord, or worshipping Ranni's feet. So there you have it, my 10 favorite RPGs of all time. I know that there's a few heavy hitters missing from the list, a Final Fantasy game, Kingdom Come Deliverance, a Dragon Quest, but as I mentioned before, I played very few JRPGs. I am working my way through all of the Final Fantasy games as well as the Yakuza and Like a Dragon games, so they might get their own list sometime in the future, or an all-encompassing JRPG list once I've played a few more of those. But as it stands right now, that is my list. What are some of your favorite RPGs and why? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Peace!